The mystery surrounding the Black Knight satellite has long been debated. Indeed, Nikola Tesla is said to have been the first to spot it and was convinced that it was an alien artifact sent across the galaxy to reconnoitre us. But does it actually exist? And if so, what exactly is it? During the 1950s, something very strange manifested: the discovery of a mysterious, unknown satellite orbiting Earth in a polar orbit. It was allegedly broadcasting something to unknown agencies long before us humans had the technology to accomplish such a feat. There are even rumours that Tesla himself managed to pick up on the transmissions of this mysterious object in 1899. Tesla reportedly intercepted a signal, unlike any of the natural sources from Earth, such as electrical storms, that he had already investigated thoroughly. He announced he was receiving regular signals from an outside intelligent source. Today, there are many that believe that he was listening to a transmission from an orbiting satellite of unknown origin, later called by some the Black Knight. Actually, Tesla was more than likely tuning into the regular transmissions of pulsars, fast-spinning neutron stars that emit a rhythmic signal. Then, Time magazine announced that the United States had apparently detected the mystery object as it orbited overhead and immediately thought it was some type of Russian spy satellite. However, this story was crushed as the US Department of Defense announced that they had in fact identified it as part of an Air Force Discoverer satellite that had gone astray. In 1954, the St. Louis Dispatch and the San Francisco Examiner reported on the strange orbiting craft and asked whether or not there was something up there, 6 years before the first successful launch of a polar orbit satellite. Aviation Week and Space Technology also featured a small article about the mystery on August 23, 1954. They wrote, "The Pentagon scare over the observance of 2 previously unobserved satellites orbiting the Earth has dissipated with the identification of the objects as natural, not artificial satellites. Dr. Lincoln La Paz, an expert on extraterrestrial bodies from the University of New Mexico, headed the identification project. One satellite is apparently orbiting around 400 miles out, while the other is about 600 miles from the Earth. Pentagon officials thought momentarily the Russians had beaten the US to space explorations." Though the discovery of an Earth-orbiting satellite was reported in a couple of newspapers, and the respected astronomer Clyde Tombaugh, who discovered Pluto, was involved, the article was actually a synopsis of a book written by the UFO expert Donald Keyhoe. Interest throughout the years was growing about the mystery object after it was seen shadowing the Sputnik 1 spacecraft in 1957. When Sputnik 2 was launched a month later, Dr. Luis Corrales of the Communications Ministry in Venezuela allegedly photographed it, again shadowing the satellite. According to several reports, the unknown craft was in a polar orbit, and at that time neither the US nor Russia possessed the technology to place and maintain a satellite in polar orbit. NASA records show that their first polar orbiting satellite was launched in 1960. Such orbital paths are commonly used for Earth mapping techniques and observation. The mysterious satellite has been nicknamed the Black Knight due to its unusual shape and dark colour. What this object is intended to do remains somewhat of a mystery. The phrase Black Knight is extremely common. It seems improbable that such a name would have come from any spacefaring nations at the time, as it's such a common name, and has probably been assigned to any number of real government or military projects. In February 1960, there was a further report that the United States Navy had detected a dark, tumbling object in an orbit inclined at 79 degrees from the equator, with an orbital period of 104.5 minutes. Its orbit was also highly eccentric, with an apogee, the farthest from the Earth, of nearly 1,000 miles, and a perigee, the closest to the Earth, of less than 150 miles. a most mysterious object on a highly unusual orbit. During the 1960s, interests were once again fuelled after astronomers once again located the object on its polar orbit. Its weight was estimated to be over 10 tons, around the same weight as NASA's heaviest artificial satellite. Also, the craft was moving twice as fast as any other orbiting satellite. The Cold War was a time of deep-rooted suspicion and espionage, not just between the USA and USSR, but now, seemingly, with extraterrestrials too. Due to the Freedom of Information Act, declassified information recently released suggested that the mysterious object was in fact connected to a Corona spy satellite under disguise. The US Discoverer research satellite program was apparently a cover for the Corona project, which was intended to photograph sensitive sites in the USSR. What NASA tells us is that the mystery object was an unexpectedly large piece of debris from Discoverer 8, released when it jettisoned its film recovery capsule known as a bucket. Discoverer 8 apparently burnt up on re-entry in March of 1960, though no debris has ever been found. Several reports demonstrate Grumman Aircraft Corporation's interest in the Black Knight. On September 3, 1960, only 7 months after the unknown craft was first detected by radar, a tracking camera at the Grumman Aircraft Corporation's Long Island facility managed to snap the object as it passed over. At that time, the orbiting craft could be seen as a red light in an east-to-west orbit. The Grumman Aircraft Corporation received the data, but it was never released to the public. What on earth was this object? And what did they find? As we know, astronaut Gordon Cooper made his heroic orbit of Earth in 1963. On his final orbit, he apparently reported seeing a green, glowing object in front of his Mercury 9 capsule and moving towards him. This was confirmed by the Muche tracking station in Australia. Again, the object was reported to be travelling east to west. NBC were quick to pick up on this and wanted to know more, but were instructed not to ask Cooper any questions. The amusing part of this report was the official explanation for the mysterious green object, which they said were high levels of carbon dioxide which caused hallucinations. Also, let's not forget astronaut John Glenn's alleged comment, "There's critters out there." In 1973, a gentleman by the name of Duncan Lunan from Scotland went back and looked over old signals from the 1920s to see if he could make any sense of them. By plotting the delay times against the order in which the echoes were received, he could apparently create diagrams and star charts. By deciphering them, Lunan came to the conclusion that the signals must have been transmitted by some type of intelligent probe, originally from the binary star Isar, and that this probe had been in the vicinity of our Moon for about 13,000 years. It would seem that others have been responsible for this. An object, photographed in 1998 during the STS-88 mission, has been widely claimed to be this alien artifact. However, it is more probable that the photographs were of a thermal blanket lost during an EVA. But further photographs have emerged, sparking new interests and theories. Secret spy satellite, alien craft, whatever the Black Knight is, it has got a reputation for turning up on NASA photographs. There are about 3,000 man-made satellites in working order around our planet, probably more if we were to count the secret spy satellites and other devices in orbit. NASA has stated that the Black Knight was nothing more than part of the Discoverer 8, nothing more than a piece of large debris floating around Earth. Ever since the Soviet Union launched their first artificial satellite into orbit in 1957, numerous countries have sought to compete. Most satellites nowadays are used for communication, navigation and exploration, with a few for surveillance and other secret stuff. Satellites are often visible passing overhead as the sunlight reflects back towards the Earth. Some may even be seen to blink on and off as they do their thermal roll. One side of the satellite is reflective, to prevent the sun from heating up delicate circuitry, whilst the other side is non-reflective, since there is no necessity to shield the whole satellite, which of course would be costly. Of course, there's one such satellite that is impossible to miss, the largest satellite currently in orbit, the International Space Station, at a huge 100 metres across. However, these satellites are relatively unexciting in comparison to the mystery surrounding one very old dark satellite, possibly 13,000 years old. Speculation or disinformation? Either way, it leads to much debate. The origin of the ominous name is part of the enigma, and it's impossible to discover who first called it the Black Knight, or indeed why. Probably the most recent and most cited evidence for the existence of the Black Knight satellite are the photographs taken by the crew of the Space Shuttle orbiter Endeavour, whilst in low Earth orbit during 1988. These images are often labelled the smoking gun, the most definite proof of the existence of this satellite. However, on more careful analysis, this strange structure seems to resemble a piece of space debris. Sadly, this mysterious black object is probably nothing more than a thermal blanket that had somehow become dislodged during an EVA. According to the respected space historian James Oberg, in his superb history of the incident, STS-88 and the Black Knight, the lost blanket burnt up when it fell out of orbit about a week after it was lost. The only officially documented reference to Black Knight comes from the papers in regards the Blue Streak rocket, which was a British-made rocket used between 1958 and 1965. And for ufologists out there, this was the very same rocket that popped up in the Cumberland Spaceman case when Jim Templeton had taken a photograph of his young daughter with, after it had been developed, what looked like an astronaut in a spacesuit behind her. Templeton said that a Blue Streak missile launch in Australia had been cancelled because two identical characters had been seen on the firing range. A video feed from the ISS showed a similar object in 2014, which again sparked debate. Information currently circulating the internet gives mention to the military and space programs of both the US and Russia having acknowledged at least the possibility of the Black Knight's existence. So, claims of a 13,000-year-old satellite originally from ISAR, reportedly been spotted numerous times and photographed by NASA astronauts as it travels its polar orbit, transmitting unusual signals down to Earth for many years, in reality, this is probably not the case. It's possible that the Black Knight is simply a jumble of completely unrelated stories, reports of unusual scientific and astronomic observations, authors promoting fringe ideas, talk of classified spy satellites and so-called experts over-interpreting photographs. As for the received radio transmissions and secondary delayed signals, there can be numerous explanations for such long delayed echoes. None of these includes orbiting alien satellites, of course. Although, if an alien craft decided to enter Earth's orbit, record numerous transmissions, and then transmit them back to us 8 seconds later, it could well have the same effect. There are, of course, a number of things seen on NASA footage that may very well be some type of extraterrestrial craft or intelligent creatures living in space. And there are many further photographs of other unexplained objects in orbit of Earth. However, on this particular occasion, it appears that we may be able to put the long mystery surrounding the Black Knight satellite to bed. Yet, despite the rational explanations for the Black Knight satellite, the stories continue, saying it's up there, in the darkness right now, just outside the Earth's glow, watching, listening. Does it really exist? And if so, what is its purpose? The mystery surrounding the Black Knight satellite is sure to continue. And don't forget, we don't actually know for certain.